Welcome to Creator Shop Talk, where I interview other YouTube content creators from pretty much across the entire expanse of YouTube. Although not always. Like in the case of today, I'm going to be interviewing Jake Roy of 90s B-Ball Cards, which is a channel that hits very close to home to my own channel. As you can see, I'm a sports card collector, and that is my YouTube space. And his channel is very similar to mine, so I've been really excited to talk to him and get a feel for his take on it, his experience with it, etc. Our channels are fairly different, so it's not like we're going to be talking about the same thing entirely, but there's a lot of shared experience that we get to discuss. And I will say we do get a little bit into talking about cards beyond just YouTube, so I do apologize to you if you feel a little bit lost in how we're journeying through this conversation. But it is a good conversation, and I do want to apologize right now because this is my first interview. And not only did I learn some lessons on how I need to approach interviews in the future, but also some of the things I thought I'd set up well didn't get set up very well. And interviews, you get one shot at it. And so while I look at this and I see a lot of flaws, I do apologize about that. They will be getting better. But enough about my side of it. The interview with Jake, I really enjoyed it, and I thought that he did a really good job talking about his channel and different aspects of how he approaches his channel and experiences with it, etc. And so I hope that you enjoy it as well. And, well, I think I've spoken enough about it, so let's start in with the channel. Here's Jake. Okay, so Jake, thank you for joining me. So what I like about your channel is that you're focused. You're one of the few sports card channels that I've seen that's focused. Normally it's like the vintage guys that are focused, and then for me, I'm all 80s and 90s pretty much. Which is really nice. So it's kind of niche in terms of what you've created, which I think is awesome. So first off, why did you come up with doing the channel?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to always chat cards. So always happy to spend time out of the day when I can to do this. So starting the channel, it was really it seemed like it just kind of happened overnight, but it really did take a while to kind of come into formulation. So I'll give you the long version. And for those that know me well, know I like to tell stories. So cut me off if I'm getting too long winded. But so like I started collecting when I was a little guy. It was 1995. I remember the year better than my age, but it was the summer of '95 that I really I had been aware of cards before that. My older brother collected. He was a big Nolan Ryan fan. He liked the Oakland Raiders. So the late 80s, early 90s, he was getting into more so baseball and football cards. So I went to a couple shows with him and my dad, and we pick up like X-Men cards, Spider-Man cards, stuff like that. I loved ripping packs. So they'd get me one or two things to kind of keep me satisfied, and they'd be searching for Napoleon Kaufman rookies, Marshall Falk rookies, stuff like that. So he was always trying to hunt down a affordable copy of the Nolan Ryan rookie, which always eluded his grasp. But yeah, so then in '95, so fast forwarding a few years, we'd always spend the summer with my grandparents at their cottage, and there was a small sports store that had opened up in the area, and they had kind of a promotion that every time you'd go in, they'd give you a free pack of cards. So, cool. I mean, sure, I'm a kid. I'll take free stuff. Yeah. So it was 95, 96 NBA hoops, which is set that still has a soft spot in my heart. So I would go in as many times as they would let me get free packs, So eventually they would be like, hey, get out of here, kid. So, that's how I started. And there were a few kids our age that were in that area as well. So we'd all go and we'd open packs and we'd try to trade cards. I can remember the first card I ever traded was a Rock the House. It was a subset card in that 95 hoops. I pulled the Jalen Rose. It was his second year, and he was a big name from the Fab Five. Yeah. And my older brother kind of swindled me and got me to trade him the Jalen Rose for a John Starks. Which it's just kind of a fun little memory. So those two cards are definitely ones that I'm fond of just for those memories. But so I collected all throughout my childhood, and it kind of ebbed and waned. I really took a shining to Penny Hardaway. We can get into that later if you want, where that came from. But that was really the core focus of my collection was Penny Hardaway.
Hmm.
And then, as I got into high school, was still opening, a few boxes a year. I wasn't as focused at the time. And then the same thing in college when I would be home on, winter break and summer break, I would always go and, I'd find some sort of wax to rip. I loved ripping wax. And again, I was not very focused in my collecting at that time. And then continued throughout, early adulthood, getting out of school, same type of stuff. And then once I had kids and I was like, I'm looking for some hobbies to do in my free time. It was the first thing that I got back into. So then I was like, I want to fill in some of the gaps in my Penny Hardaway collection. I gravitated towards, other groups of like-minded people. So I found a Penny Hardaway fans group on Facebook. A lot of card collectors there. Some people that like shoes and jerseys and all kinds of stuff, but all Penny Hardaway fans. And I was seeing a lot of questions come up about cards from the 90s. And this was stuff that I grew up with. I poured over the Beckett's. I loved looking at the pack odds. I loved looking at, the configuration of boxes and all kinds of stuff like that. So I was finding that there were a lot of questions that were coming up that I could answer. And a lot of them were people that were new to the group or coming back into cards or what have you. And the questions were kind of repetitive, right? There's a lot of the same questions over and over and over again. So I was trying to think of like, how can I answer these questions in a way that it's not like, me on Facebook just copy paste the same thing over and over and over again. And I was, maybe I should make some videos, maybe a podcast. And I felt as though between the two, I feel as though cards are really a visual format. So doing an audio format podcast didn't really make sense for me. And I also wanted to kind of make a connection with people. So if I'm like, out in the real world at a show or what have you, and people want to ask me questions, they kind of, they know who I am, so they can ask a question rather than just hearing my voice. So I started making videos, showing cards, talking about, what I like about them and the information that I know from either the Beckett or, more recent research or what have you. And, as they say, the rest is history.
Well, awesome. Yeah, so you started your channel for basically the same reason I did, because for me it wasn't about being asked questions as much as it was the questions I had as a collector. Where I'm the big one I did talk about it in the video is 1995 collector's choice for football, the Crash the Game cards.
Hmm.
And they had the redemption over in football was that we had a silver set and a gold set, which you're probably familiar with. We also had a silver touchdown set and a gold touchdown set. And I couldn't figure out what the difference was, and the Beckett listed it as the same price. So I found the gold set in gold touchdown set complete, and then the silver touchdown set I was trying to track down, and somebody on eBay had one. And so they, it's the Marino that they were showing. So I bought it, but I got the silver set, not the silver touchdown set, and I got ticked off. So I asked him about it, and he explained that the silver, you got either a gold set or a silver set, but you also got a single touchdown, silver or gold, that went along with it. Okay. And it wasn't the same player. And just like that, it answered all of my questions. And the thing was, I was lucky enough to know somebody who knew that. And that's the only way I could have found out. And I'm going, there has to be a place where this information can be found. And so that's why I created my channel, was to break all that down and to create, obviously, as you've seen, I use a very structured and formal presentation that's meant to hold up over time. But that's what I've always liked about your channel, is that you do a pack opening, and the first thing you do is you say, okay, this is what's in the set. And I'm going, why doesn't anybody else do that? So I appreciate that you do that.
Yeah. Well, and I actually, I didn't, when I first started, I kind of, I've iterated over the years. I remember the very early videos, I actually had a Beckett in front of me and I just talked through. I didn't even show examples of the cards at that time. And then I would rip a pack or two, like I'd rip into I remember I think it's the first video on my channel is 98, 99 Tops, which is another, set that I have a lot of fond memories. Ripped a lot of that as a kid. And, so I opened that box, and what I was doing then is I was ripping open the box, I'd pop it open, I'd open a couple packs on camera, and then I'd turn the camera off and I'd rip the rest of them with my brother, actually, and then I'd come back and show the hits. And, after seeing a few other people do those videos, I was just like, oh, this is I mean, I wasn't doing this, but it's an easy way to sit there and be like, oh, I hit the big hit. It was off camera. You didn't see it, but I
Oh,
did it. So then that's when I kind of was starting to try to figure out how can I show the whole box, but not have it take, 2 hours.
right.
So I played around with it where that's where I kind of got into just opening a few packs, right? Buying loose packs sometimes, or sometimes cracking a whole box and just kind of chunking out the packs into different videos. But yes, then eventually I was also thinking the same type of thing with, if I show the cards that you could hit after I've already opened the box, it's also an easy way that people could be like, oh, you didn't actually hit those in the box, so I was like, if I show the cards that are like from my collection before I open the box, that's, the cleanest way, for everybody. So it's taken time, it's been years. So, every year or every week, or, if I have an idea, I make some updates and changes and try to make it better for everybody.
Yeah, I started early in my channel because nobody was finding my channel. But to be honest, nobody still has. I have less than 100.
We're all small fish in big pond.
Yeah, I started doing box rips, and the problem is I can't just sit there and talk.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't make sense, and I've always found those boring. So what I would do is I'd do a recap at the end, kind of like what you did with the first two videos you were talking about, 98 and then 99. But for me, what I liked was, because I sorted I'm a set guy. So
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I'm trying to find out how close I am to the set. And so is that little thing I tacked on to the end, recapping, where I'm going, I like that.
Yep.
Why don't I just do the whole thing? So, I started doing box reviews, which is,
Mm-hmm.
it's a fun thing to do, but it's, it's that journey where you start to do something, you're building it up and going, okay, it's kind of working. And then there's something that stands out and you go, okay, that is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
a
definitely.
fun evolution.
Yeah, and it's fun too, like figuring out. Sometimes it's easy to go for like the shiny new toy, and seeing like other people that are making videos are having really good success with this type of video, but maybe you feel as though it's morally onerous to do something like that. So I'm not gonna necessarily go for the shiny new toy. I'm gonna do it the way that seems good and true to me.
Yeah.
So iterating in that way also, I think, because at the end of the day, at least for me, I always sit there and think about like, well, what were my intentions when I started the channel, right? Was it to, get 1 million subscribers and all these views and make money? Like, no, it was to just build a connection and answer questions, right? And if I keep focusing on that being the core of why I'm doing it, and it's fun, right? That's the other thing too, is like, I enjoy making the videos and opening packs and talking about cards. Like, that's something that's fun for me. If it gets to be a point that it's not fun, or I'm losing the sight of that focus that I originally started with, and I have to recalibrate.
Yeah. One thing I understand is niche, because I started off, the only reason I did the channel was not for popularity. It was to provide information. So the thought of veering from that, for me personally, is something I would never even consider. It just, then the question is, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Because, I'm very much an introvert. I don't like being on camera. I'm doing it. Even this, where I'm interviewing other YouTubers about channels, it's because I want to know, about the journeys that we go through and the evolution that we go through. And so there are a lot of things I could do to increase the viewership.
Mm-hmm.
One big thing I could do, obviously, is to do like a top tens and stuff like that. The value one is what really bothers me, because
Mm-hmm.
I know I could do 10 value videos and probably get 50,000 views across all of those.
Sure.
But then, one, I'm doing something I don't want. Two, I got to go research, learn how the value is, or I could just make it up. And again, it goes down to, I don't care about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For me right now, I have this is the video I'm working on for Thursday.
Okay.
This is the entirety of the breakdown for 1999 2000 Topps, which is a lot of cards.
Right.
It's over an inch thick.
Yep.
A ton of work. And by the way, watching your box break on that,
Mm-hmm.
which is your third video actually, or the third video you have on there,
Yep.
I'd forgotten about the jumbo cards. So I'm watching, go, oh crap, I gotta add that to the video.
I'm gonna add that one in.
Timing.
Yep.
But
Yeah, that's a fun product too, and
it
that's
is.
one that I remember. One of my buddies, he's really fond of that set, especially the Chrome version, and he was always trying to get me to buy like a couple boxes of the Chrome, and I was like, "There's just it never excited me that much, right? The Chrome."
Yeah.
So I was just like, the other boxes I could get at that same price point, I would rather than getting a few boxes of Chrome. So sure enough, after Kobe's passing, those boxes, took off. And he's like, "See, you should have bought the boxes." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm buying them to rip them. I'm not buying them because like, oh, I could buy it for $50 and now it's 300. So I definitely appreciate like the value aspect is not what drives me. I know it drives a lot of views and clicks, and it's always something that people like to gawk at. But I also find if you focus on the price point of a card, that it's not something that you can go back 2 years later because those prices change, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. And it just, if people don't recognize, hey, I'm looking at a video that's 3 years old, and you're talking about the Jordan Scoring Kings, if you're talking about the Jordan Scoring Kings 3 years ago and somebody doesn't realize that that was 3 years ago, then they're going to be like, well, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about because that card's worth way more than that now. But yeah, that's why I think staying away from that type of stuff makes your videos more evergreen. And
Yes.
people can go back to it as a reference material. There's tons of times people are on Facebook or Instagram and they're like, "Oh, hey, I'm thinking about buying this box. Is there anything good in it?" And I'll just send them a link to a video. And it's like, here's what you can get, and
Yeah.
here's like what my experience was. Like, I got this and it was all bricked. So buyer beware. That type of stuff. So it's always helpful.
Yeah. I am. I mean, on top of all of that, it takes all of my time, literally all of my time, to do my videos too. Because I showed you the number of cards that
Right.
go into breaking that down, and it's one thing to make the videos, which takes anywhere from 10 to 20 hours per Thursday video,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the years sometimes of research, of searching these cards out. They're especially in basketball. Basketball for me is just maddening because it's where
Mm-hmm.
most of my views come from. But as passionate as the fans are, there aren't a lot of cards, and so you have a limited number of sets you can work on, and you got a massive number of high dollar people
Mm-hmm.
focusing on small cards.
Yep.
I got
Yep.
Z Force is sitting here. I'm just waiting for the Super Rave,
Mm.
and that's the only card I need, and I can do both the 96 and 97 sets. But to spend $300 to $400 on one card
Sure.
for a video nobody's going to watch
Sure.
is really maddening.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is that the workload that goes into it is, it's part of the passion, but it also certainly limits the creativity of what else I can do in my channel. And that's something I think is cool with you, is that you're very freeform.
Mm-hmm.
Your channel is basically you as a passionate hobbyist just talking about cool cards. It's more the way that you flow.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you go back and look at the genesis of my videos, there for the first, I don't know how long, maybe the first year, maybe the first two, it was all box and packs rips. And eventually I got to the point where it's just like sometimes I just want to show off cool cards in my collection, and maybe I don't have the packs to rip to show those off. So I was really trying to free form and figure out how can I share those things that I like. And doing some of the grading when I started getting into grading a little bit. That was kind of the way that I started to change the way I was thinking about, because what I had done the first few times I did a grading order is I showed the cards that I was sending out for grading. I talked about why I was sending out for grading and what I was hoping that the card would get as a grade. And then, at that time, the turnaround times were not months. So, it was a much shorter window between when I was sending them and when they were coming back to get the reveal,
Yeah.
which seemed like a better payoff for a viewer. So you're not, for me anyway, if it takes 3, 4, 5 months for the payoff, I've probably lost focus as a viewer. So that's when I stopped doing that. But that was a way that I started kind of showing some of the cards in my collection, and then I was just like, okay, now I can start thinking through different ways. And I think the first time, I'm trying to remember the first time. I remember just doing a top 10, like my top 10 cards in my collection,
Yeah.
and then people were asking to see, more Penny cards and more Jordan cards and more of this. So then that's when I started digging into like just doing the top 10 of a specific player in my collection. And I've gotten requests for some of the more obscure players in my collection. And I've hesitated just because I don't focus on those as much, So like
Mhm.
I have some really fun Michael Finley cards, right? But I don't actively focus on Michael Finley, so I don't have new Michael Finley cards in my collection often that I can
Yeah.
share. So it's one of those things. Like I have a lot of changes in my Penny Hardaway collection year over year, so sharing that and people kind of following that journey makes a little bit more sense. And at least that's what people have told me.
Now, how as I recall, your early videos were basically just sitting at a table
Hmm.
and
Yep.
going through cards. And I can see that now you have a much more elaborate set. What was there like an evolution with that, or did you finally like with me? The set that I use is just a corner of my apartment where I looked at.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Right.
Was that sitting there and you just turned the camera, or did you just set that up?
Yeah, no. So, it like everything, it was a journey. So at the beginning, my cards were actually being stored at my brother's house because I had a young child, and having things that are easily destroyed by young kids at the
Yep.
house didn't seem like a smart idea. So I would actually go over to his house sometimes after work. We'd find time, and we'd record it together, and it was fun because we grew up ripping packs together and collecting together. So it was was another version of that in our card journey. So we were doing that together, and then right around, I want to say it was probably around COVID. We were trying to be careful, with everybody's health, and so it didn't make as much sense for me to go over there as often and rip packs of cards with him. So, talking to my wife about it, and she was just like, well, why don't you bring your cards here? Our daughter was a little bit older at the time, but we also have like a lot of space in the basement that
Hmm.
we just don't use. So this space that I actually have was an old workshop from a prior owner. So like the shelves and stuff behind me were
Oh,
already set
cool.
up to hold tools and whatnot. Which was not how I wanted to use the space, but it was being unused at the time. So it's just like, this is perfect. 'Cause I had all of these, all the starting lineup figures and all this stuff from my childhood. And it was just sitting in a box in the basement. And I was like, oh, well, I could put this up behind me, So I think the first time I actually recorded down here, it was before, COVID and stuff, but it was for a live stream for the PWCC auction of the Jordan PMG Green back when they were on eBay. This is a dated statement. But I remember like that was also its own genesis, talking to some other people who were, making videos about basketball cards in the space. And it was the first time that many of us were meeting. And that was the first time that I even was like, okay, well, I want to do this thing, but this goes off at midnight. I'm not going to be sitting in my living room or my dining room and like, waking up the kids or, making my wife
Yeah.
stay up late waiting for me to finish up. So I was like, I'm just going to, get this space kind of, fixed up a little bit. And then at that point, she was like, you're already doing those live streams down there every so often. So why don't you just, use that space? So, yeah. And then that's how it came to be. And now this is just the regular old space for me. Some people don't know any different. Some people are surprised to hear that I even had a different space at one time, but yeah, I did.
Yeah, it's really cool. When I started, my initially I was thinking about building a set, and that was the thing was I looked in the corner and I went, well, it's already done. You got
Mm-hmm.
the binders, you got the shelves, you got the piles of cards, which because for me that was a big part. I wanted to make sure that you saw piles of cards because that is as a collector you have those
Oh
unless
yeah,
unless you're protecting them from like I love cats. I will not have a cat in here.
sure.
Just like a
Yep.
little kid, it's going to have a lot of fun.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
But once you see that, okay, this guy is actually actively involved with this. And for me, cards are toys. I don't like graded cards, nothing like that. Which you probably figure out just from the binders,
Sure.
the immense number of binders. But yeah, uh, the set really does look great. I love how that looks for you.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of nostalgia. It's a
Yes.
little bit of everything.
Now, have you done a tour of that yet, or you've shown people?
I think I did one. It is something that I'm planning on doing again at some point because I'm always changing things out behind me. Like there's a few kind of like mainstay pieces that stay pretty same throughout the years, but there's always new. And I mean, I'm trying to think. Actually, I got a new figure recently. Like I do get new figures, so I got a Patrick Ewing the other day, right? So
Okay.
he's sitting there behind me. So every so often I'll get new figures or whatnot, or I'll move things around. So I think I would have to look. I'm pretty sure I did one, but I have to look to confirm. But yeah, if I have done one, I will probably be doing one not too far in the future. And if I haven't done one, then there will be one.
Yeah, I have two starting lineup figures that a friend of mine. I don't know if they're from '88 or '89, but one of them is a Jordan, and he broke the
Hmm.
base off, so he looks like he's dunking.
Okay,
Which
nice.
there's a side of me that dies when I think about that. There's another side which is it looks cool, and so
Yeah,
they're literally hanging by the basketball off the shelf, which is
nice.
a fun little thing. But yeah, I don't change. Main reason I don't change my set around is because all those active piles of cards are they're there for a reason.
Sure.
But yeah, it's I did a video of my 3-year anniversary, I think it was, where I showed right next to me is a whole shelf of
Hmm.
piles of cards from various stuff that I'm working on. The problem for me though is I could do probably an 8-hour video going through the whole apartment because it is I cannot emphasize this enough. It's nothing but cards in here.
Sure.
This project has taken over my life, which
Yeah,
is
and
which is
if I move the camera just a little bit over to this side, you'd see my piles. Where what it ends up being for me is when I get new cards in my collection, the way that I like to organize them, it takes some time.
oh
So
yeah,
I'll kind of stack them and kind of do the what I'll do is I'll organize the stack the way that I like my whole PC of that player organized, and then when I pull out that PC, then I can kind of put those in the right spots. So it's something that unfortunately with having kids, you have other priorities that you can't get to the organization, and I like the space to be a little more tidy than it is.
yeah.
But kids don't care about it being tidy, so um, you know there will be a time and a phase of my life where I can do all the cleaning up and organization as I want. And right now that's not the time. So we're enjoying the phase that we're at right now.
Yes, yeah, that's good. Now I haven't seen. I think I've seen about 20 videos from your channel, so I'm not too well versed. But you do. I assume you're still doing the pack rips.
Yep. Yep.
So you do that. You've done some personal collection videos,
Yep.
and so what else is? Well, you also do question and answers. I've
Yep.
seen this. So what else do you do on your channel?
Yeah, so I also do, if I send out a grading order, I'll do the reveal of those. So
Right.
I'll open the box, and it's a blind reveal. I enjoy the pack opening because I don't know what I'm going to get, and the same thing with a grading reveal. I enjoy not knowing what the grades. I know what the cards are, but I don't know what the grade's going to be. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's horrible, and sometimes it's in between. So yeah, I'll do those. I do like maybe 2 or 3 interviews with other collectors throughout the year. Those I find for me the way that I like to do them take a lot of time.
Yeah. No.
So I try not to overwhelm myself because I know there's a lot of people that like interviews, and I could change my whole channel around. But I like to when people are talking about a card or talking about a set or talking about an experience, I like to show what they're talking about so the
Yeah.
audience has a reference point because I don't expect that everybody's going to come in and just know off the top of their head what we're talking about. Sometimes we get into some nerdy topics that are kind of little rabbit trails. So I like to give the audience something to chew on with their eyes. So yeah, I put a lot of time into those. I'll also do like if I go to a show, I try to kind of do a review of the show for lack of a better term, where I'll kind of I'll sometimes what I'll try to do is I've set up at shows a few times, and what I have done that I thought was fun. I don't remember what the viewership was like on it, but I would record myself in the car, kind of talking about my preparations and my expectations or my hopes for the show, and then trying to capture a little bit of the show while I'm there, and then my drive back talking about what went well, what didn't go well, what did I pick up, that type of stuff, and then I'll usually kind of like show the cards that I picked up, when I get home, type of thing. So I don't go to as many shows as I would like, but when I do, I like to kind of share that experience in a way that makes sense, whether I'm walking around or if I'm set up, which I've only done a few times.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a pretty good variety for your channel. Have you thought of doing anything kind of a long form project? Because you seem to do basically just on camera speaking type of
Yeah,
content.
no, I haven't. I mean, not really. I mean, the longest there's some projects that I call them project. There's stuff that I kind of work on off to the side. That's like when I'm done with it, I'll probably make a video and kind of like share like, oh, here's this took 2 years to put together, but here's what I put together and here's why I
Right.
want to do it and all that type of stuff. Um, Other than that, like I know there's been a lot of people that have approached me about the thoughts of making my own trading card database, for lack of a better term. Where I'm just kind of focused on the odds, right? Because I love
Yeah.
digging into the odds. I think that's important information that not enough people know about when they're making decisions on what to add to their collection. But for me, I don't like the idea of reinventing the wheel. So it's like where trading card DB is already out there.
Hmm.
It's a piece of information I'd love for them to have there. I'd love to help them with it. But knowing the people that run that, it's something that they don't have a ton of time to invest in
Yeah.
reconfiguring as
Yeah.
well.
You got to
So
focus.
yeah,
And
exactly.
they actually photographed their collection, which I was impressed with that.
Yep. Yep.
I know
Yeah,
the
it's a
guys at
great
Burbank
it's a
Sports
great
Cards.
tool.
Yeah, I know the guys at Burbank Sports Cards, and I remember the undertaking they took when they did that, and
It's a lot.
it's a lot.
It's a
So
lot.
I'm
Yeah.
impressed. Yeah, I have the URLs. I just haven't taken the time to build a website because
Nice.
I want to do that as well.
Yeah.
I get asked about doing that in videos, and number one, sometimes you don't get the pack odds, and
Hmm.
so do you or do you not? But the other thing is it's difficult. So when I do my videos, it doesn't matter if it's a 15-minute or a 30-minute long video. I do a straight run
Hmm.
of sitting there and talking about it. I have the cards sitting next to me, like I showed you, a pile of cards. And sometimes I can remember everything off the top of my head because I practice and practice and practice and
Sure.
practice, and then I do it. And sometimes, like with this one, it's kind of choppy because I hadn't had enough time since there's so many cards.
Hmm.
Remembering all of that stuff is pretty tricky. Um, and so adding on top of that to remember the pack odds is just like a nightmare. I don't even
Yeah.
want to get
Yeah.
into with the videos. But you're right. Having a website that breaks down all that information, much of what's on the in my videos and then additional, is something I do hope to be able to put together at some
Yeah.
point when I have the time.
Right. Right. That's always the key. That's something that we all have the same constraint of time. So
Yeah. So the with the evolution of your channel, what's well, first off, what's the equipment change been for like cameras and lights and stuff like that?
yeah, it's pretty minimal. I started out recording on my what was it, an iPhone? I don't know which generation of iPhone it was, but I started out recording on my iPhone.
Okay.
Literally, my brother would be holding the iPhone, and some of those early videos, you might even see his fingers start to kind of like creep into the shot. But he was literally just holding it with his hand. We'd have lights around his table that we could turn on, and that was it. Actually, the first videos, I think, I had my back to his sliding glass door, so I was getting a lot of natural light, and it kind of made me look like I was, a shadow creature. So figuring that out, I'm like, okay, well, I need to be on the other side of the room, having that, so figuring that. So at first, the equipment was really my iPhone and whatever lights and sunlight we had available to us.
Yeah.
Once I moved down here, I still have the iPhone, but eventually I got a tripod that I put the iPhone on.
Okay.
So I just record from my iPhone. I use the lights that I have around. Luckily down here, it's a space that kind of like reflects light pretty well. But there's sometimes when you'll be watching a video that there'll be a strong beam of sunlight coming through the window that'll kind of give you a little bit of a glare on the card. That I'm sure people have picked up on. But yeah, nothing I can do about. I'm not going to block out all the sunlight in the room. I think that that's important to get a little bit of sunlight when I'm down here. So yeah, I keep it pretty minimalistic. I try to keep it as low investment as possible. Mainly because I like I like the line in Moneyball when David Justice is talking about like, why do we have to pay for soda in the clubhouse? And
Uh-huh.
Jonah Hill's character comes in and is like, well, Billy likes to keep the money on the field.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way that I feel with my collecting, right? Like the more money that I pour into, if I get a really nice camera, like, well, that's a few cards I'm not going to buy,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I try to keep it as minimalistic as possible.
Yeah, I use my my Nikon regular camera where when I was getting ready for it, I was thinking, okay, I got to get a camcorder, and then I watched. There's a guy I watched, Simon Whistler,
Hmm.
who's a British. Well, today I found out is what he's most famous for. He does a whole. I think he's up to like 16 channels.
Oh wow.
But he was doing a video where he was talking about what he was doing, and he showed his camera. And I went, wait a
Hmm.
minute, that's the same camera I've got. And it never dawned on me that my regular DSLR camera could work as a recording device. And so,
Sure.
great, already had that. Bought the lights, bought a simple microphone, and I was able to get off and running.
Yeah.
And ever since, I'd like to buy a 50 millimeter fixed lens, and I'd like to get, there are a lot of things I'd like to get, but I also need to get the $400 Super Rave card.
Right. Right.
So it's it's always a battle, but yeah, the idea of spending money on a channel that's for fun, because
Hmm.
really that's what we're doing. Now, maybe someday we'll become really popular and we'll start making revenue and go, okay, well, maybe I need to invest in it, but
Sure.
that's a little ways off.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a little bit. It's funny because like I've had people ask me in the comments of a video, like, is this your full time job? And my response usually is something a little snarky. It's like, no, I enjoy eating.
Yeah.
Because it's nice. It's nice when YouTube allows you to do the ad revenue, and it does offset the cost a little bit. But I mean, would it pay for my hotel at the National? No. Would it pay for my plane ticket? Maybe. So that it's putting that into context, it's not enough to make you quit your day job. But the creators who do cards as a full-time job might also have a YouTube channel, but I rest assured there's nobody that's making their full-time living off of making YouTube videos alone. So
No, not for cards.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so any ideas or any ideas of where you might go with the channel, or are you things you'd like to do?
I don't know if there's anything I have top of mind right now that's like a new thing I want to get into. I have debated a couple of years ago. My wife and I were going on vacation. I was like, do you want to like do a video of our vacation or like a video of our hotel room or something like that? And she kind of hemmed and hawed because she has some friends who, are more vlogger YouTubers that have pretty large YouTube channels
Right.
and stuff. So she's not completely agnostic to the idea. But at the end of the day, we decided, when we go on a vacation, get some time away from the kids, we're gonna thoroughly enjoy it, and producing content is not something that is gonna enhance that. So, going on a Disney trip with the kids and vlogging that is probably not gonna be something you'll see on my channel. But I'm not gonna say it can't be. I just don't anticipate that being a thing. I did the last time when I got my newest iPhone, the iPhone 12, which now sounds really really old. I did do an unboxing of that. I was very excited to get that. So when I get the next one, I think I'll probably get the 16 at some point here. I might do an unboxing of that. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, probably just a lot more pack openings. Those are getting harder and harder to do. Just because like for a while I had like a stash of packs that for some reason I didn't rip when I was a kid. And then I would kind of add packs to that. And I had a few people that were really good at, finding packs at like, yard sales and stuff like that. And that stuff is also dried up. Those people would come to me and say, hey, like one person hit me up one day and said, I stumbled upon like a dozen or 2 dozen packs of 97 Flair Showcase. And I was like,
Wow.
you gotta be kidding me. So
Wow.
they were like, I want these, but I know that you could make a really good video, so I'm willing to give you, like, I think he gave me like 5 at the cost that he got them for, which is really generous.
Yeah.
Um, but those chance opportunities for people that I know are becoming less and less. So then those coming to me are also becoming less and less. And then finding packs on eBay that haven't been searched,
Hmm.
that haven't been tampered in any way, shape, or form, that are not being posted for astronomical prices that I can
Yeah.
actually justify ripping. Those are getting harder and harder as well. So there are some videos that when I first set out that I was really excited to do at some point, and they seem to get further and further out of reach. It's funny because like one of my buddies would be that he picked up 97, 98 Topps Chrome. I want to say it was like 2 dozen packs, and I can't remember what he paid for them, but it was really really inexpensive. And we ripped them all on the channel, and we did not get much of anything to write home about. But he's just like, that type of a deal. We didn't realize how lucky we were to find that at the time.
Yeah.
And then he also found a really good deal on 97, 98 EX 2001, which we were gonna open on the channel, but that didn't work out. And it was just one pack. He found one pack for, I
Uh-huh.
want to say it was like $25,
Wow.
if I remember correctly. Which,
Gee.
yeah, it's like one pack of EX 2001 right now. If you could find one, what would it? I can't even imagine what it would go for. Probably a couple hundred. But I think he pulled like a Joe Dumars and a Tom Gugliotta base. So that would have been a really kind of
Yeah.
big letdown. But I think sometimes people like to watch that, even if you do get a stinker. But yeah, stuff like that. It's getting harder to find packs. So when I can find packs for a decent price, I have a stash still. So it's not like I'm running out of packs, but it's harder and harder to find good packs to rip on the channel.
Yeah, I do. Every 4 weeks, I go through all the different sports, and it's still pretty easy to get somewhat, relative today, affordable boxes of
Yep.
football, baseball, and hockey. Basketball is a nightmare, though.
Yep.
I bought a Skybox 94 Skybox Dream Team, or not Dream Team, Dream Team 2 box
Mm-hmm.
for, I think it was like $60.
Okay.
So I got that. I'm going to be ripping that for an upcoming video. And again, you're looking at it going, I have all the cards. And you got to
Right.
spend $60 on this, really thin box. And when I was watching I think it was the 99 Tops box rip that you did 6 years ago. You
Mm-hmm.
said, these aren't too bad. They're about $20.
Yeah.
Oh man, that did not age well.
No, no, not at all. Well, it's funny too because I was talking about the 98, 99 box that I ripped. I want to say I got that at the time for like, it was maybe $35, $45, I want to say. And I mean, I would be shocked if you could find that box for less than $100 today.
Yeah.
And I mean at the time too, like roughly a $50 box was not a cheap box
No.
for 90s stuff. Because you got to think about it. Blasters at the time were, depending on the product, $15 to $20. And you could find them easily at retail. You could find Prism at retail pretty readily at the time. So it's like people, when they're figuring out how to spend their hobby dollars, it's like, why would I spend my $50 on this 98.99 box of, it's not shiny. There's some hollow foil inserts that I could hit, but I'm not going to hit a Jordan. So that doesn't really play as well with a 12-year-old collector when they're really interested in pulling a Dame Silver. So but yeah, now people definitely, I don't know how many people are buying the boxes at the current prices to rip, versus just kind of sitting on them and having them for nostalgic purposes, which to me is like, if I buy a box, I bought it with the intention to rip it. But everybody's got their own reasons.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I guess I'll bring this to close. So again, stick around. But I want to thank you for the interview. It's been really helpful. And your YouTube channel again is
90s _b-ball _cards.
cool. All right. Well, thank you. So thank you to Jake for doing this interview. I had a lot of fun in this, and I hope that the interview worked really well for you guys, that it flowed well. Again, I apologize about some of the issues that I ran into, things like the camera placement, and the shirt was kind of weird. That was a last minute change in order to get the lighting right. Again, there are a lot of things I got to learn, so this is one of those things where it's you get to see the nuts and bolts as things are evolving. In fact, I'm going to change the whole setting. I'm going to have to. It's going to be interesting to see where I end up with that. But again, the interview with Jake I thought was really great. I'm so thankful for him to allow me to interview him for this and ask him questions about running his channel. So definitely do, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I do urge you to do so, and look out for future interviews as they come up. If you do have any ideas for interviews, please let me know down in the comments below, or if you would like to be interviewed, I'm definitely looking to figure out who to interview. So it'll be fun to see how all that goes. But I do want to thank you for watching.